in these spaghetti.
Stand back! Oh! Defense attorneys, if you can just pull over here, I don't know all your names, just check it with me so I can throw your name.
Yes, everyone has cards, I will take them.
Yeah, nobody, yeah. One time. Even up with the machine. All right, this term of Nottingham County Court now in session with the Honorable Robert L. Bauer presiding. Please be seated. All right, so folks, to begin, welcome to Nottingham County Court. I know today's proceedings have garnered a lot of interest. You are all welcome to be here. This is a public courtroom. However, you can forfeit your right to be here by your conduct. This will be the only warning I'll give that no outbursts or disturbances of any kind will be tolerated. With that, we'll proceed. First case, please. Is it Mr. Safranco?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so counsel, at the outset, I'll note that I have a number of requests from the media. Does either side have any objection to audio, visual, and photographic coverage of today's proceedings? Prosecution? How about you, Mr. Safranco? All right, the court will permit the same. You can come right up to the podium, sir. This is the matter of the people against Nicholas Anslone, indictment 25035, on for arraignment today. Defense counsel would please note your appearance for the record. Do I understand correctly, Mr. Sifranco, you've been retained to represent Nicholas Anslone? That is your name, sir, Nicholas Anslone?
Yes.
How old are you, Mr. Anslone?
44.
Mr. Anslone, you're here today because the grand jury of Oneida County returned an indictment against you. You have to be arraigned upon that. Counsel, you may arraign. Very good. A not guilty plea is then entered on the defendant's behalf. It is my intention at this time, Mr. Sifranco, to adjourn the matter to this point toward the end of March. I'd like to give you some time to review the discovery materials that I imagine have been or will be supplied to you shortly, and then have a pretrial conference to discuss scheduling of motions and things of that nature. March 31st, 9:30 a.m.
Copy of the indictment. One name is redacted from the indictment because that individual is not yet in custody. I'm also handing him over standard pretrial notices. I've included an IAD notice, even though there were no formal identification procedures here. The ID notice is self-explanatory. It has to do with people who testified in front of the grand jury that we videotaped, but this is all indicated that this person, such and such. I don't know that it will be the subject of hearing, but I'll let Mr. Sefranco take care of that.
Understood.
I do acknowledge Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, and with that, did either side want to be heard on the question of bail? Mr. Fitzpatrick.
$1,000 cash or $250,000 bond. Questions?
Oh, okay. Mr. Fitzpatrick, we're having some difficulty hearing you. I'm going to ask you if you'd use the podium that has a microphone available to you. We'll get that over closer to you. Mr. Sifranco, did you want to be heard on that topic?
Yes, sure.
Bail bond, like this, as well, apparently surrender himself over this family in this area, charges could be possibly felony. Bailed himself in constant contact with office. Not have a valid passport when he surrendered that, not that office, being in jurisdiction, and his all intentions of being in court every time he's surrendered. You would ask him to set the bail as requested by the district.
All right, the court has considered the statutory factors, and I do take particular note of the reality that if the defendant were convicted of the top count contained in this indictment, he faces a sentence of as much as 25 years to life in state prison. Accordingly, bail is set in the following amounts. That is $100,000 cash, $250,000 insurance company bail bond, or $1 million partially secured surety bond with a minimum 10% deposit. Do I understand correctly, Mr. Sifranco, you have a bondsman available? All right. Mr. Bernardo, if you have that paperwork complete, I will review the same. Officer, would you do me a favor and pass that over to Mr. Sifranco as well? Yes, you may. Thank you. All right, and before me now is Bondsman J. Bernardo. Mr. Bernardo, you swear the truth of the content of your bail undertaking and affidavit. Is that correct? Thank you. Mr. Anzalone, confirm for me you signed the bail undertaking here as well?
Yes.
All right. And Mr. Anzalone, I have before me now a proposed bail bond in the amount of $250,000, and I understand you're asking to be released upon this bond. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Do you understand what your number one obligation is under this bond?
Yes.
What is that?
Of course.
Exactly, return to court. Some things I want to make sure you understand. First, you do have a right to be present at all stages of proceedings in your case, but if for some reason you did not come back to court as required, and a warrant would be issued for your arrest, the bail you're posting by way of this bond, that would be forfeited and lost. You would then face a new felony charge, and that's known as bail jumping. Your case could then proceed in your absence. That means you could be tried in your absence, and if convicted, sentenced in your absence as well. You understand?
Yes.
I have received now a document entitled Parker Warning, outlining the warnings that I just gave you in writing. You signed this document here as well after reviewing it with your attorney. Is that right?
Yes.
Court is signing and approving the bail bond. Transport gentleman can have that. Mr. Anzalone, you're due back in this court March 31st at 9:30 a.m. for a pretrial conference with your attorney. I will see you back here then.
Here.
Anything further from either side? All set then. Thank you, counsel.
Bail should be denied.
Should have been denied. $250,000.
David Walter.
Not back, folks, up there, you bail back.
No bail.
White race, white boy, prison guards. They never go.
Yeah.
Mr. Passalacqua, you're representing David Walters?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so I do have a number of requests from the news media to cover today's proceedings by audio, visual coverage, as well as photography. Do you have any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Fitzpatrick, no objection. The court will permit the same. Yes.
Understood, Your Honor. Absolutely.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Mr. Starzewski, any objection to the media coverage here today?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Fitzpatrick, can I assume you have a continuing no objection? All right, very good. The court will permit the same.
Well, this is gonna be another new.
Mockery of justice.
Yeah, do you have Farina? We'll take Farina, please.
Excuse me, we'd like to know if something wrong with the audio, we can't hear what's going on in the court. That's all in the court.
This is the matter of the people against Anthony Farina, indictment 25035, on for arraignment today. I've received correspondence from a James Riotto that he's been retained in this matter. Are you?
Yes, Judge, I'm here of counsel.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Starzewski. All right, and that's your name, sir, Anthony Farina? How old are you, Mr. Farina?
49.
Mr. Farina, you are here today because the grand jury of Oneida County returned an indictment against you, so you have to be arraigned upon that. Mr. Fitzpatrick, you may arraign.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Farina, in indictment 25-35, you have been indicted by an Oneida County grand jury charged with various crimes, the top count of which is murder in the second degree. And counsel, I'd ask if you waive a formal reading of the indictment. Waive a reading answer, plea not guilty to all charges.
Your not guilty plea is entered on the defendant's behalf.
This time, Judge, I'm going to hand counsel a copy of the indictment, again with the admonition that one name has been redacted because that individual is not in custody. Also providing our standard pretrial notices along with a disc concerning certain statements made by Mr. Farina, and ask if you acknowledge receipt. Acknowledge receipt, Your Honor.
All right. What I'm going to do, Mr. Starzewski, is adjourn the matter to March 31st at 9:30 a.m. for a pretrial conference to give you some time to review the discovery materials. At that time, I can set up a motion schedule for you as well. Will that be you or Mr. Riotto at that time?
Probably Mr. Riotto.
Very good. All right. And with respect to the topic of bail, Mr. Fitzpatrick?
I would ask, Your Honor, bail consistent with what you said on Mr. Anselmo.
Mr. Starzewski, your thoughts?
Pardon.
All right, the court's considered the statutory factors and taking particular note of the fact that the defendant, if convicted of the top count, could face a sentence of as much as 25 years to life in state prison. Bail is set in the following amounts. That is $100,000 cash, $250,000 insurance company bail bond, or $1 million partially secured surety bond with a minimum 10% deposit. Officer, if you please pass this over. Mr. Starzewski, I'm going to have you provided with a Parker warning to review with your client.
Thank you.
Mr. Farina, you do have a right to be present at all stages of the proceedings in your case, but if for some reason you posted bail and then did not come back to court as required, or if you're arrested, the posted bail will be forfeited and lost. You may then face a new felony charge known as bail jumping, and the case may proceed in your absence, meaning you could be tried in your absence, and if convicted, sentenced in your absence as well. Do you understand that? I've received this document entitled Parker Wing, which outlines in writing the warnings that I just gave you. Confirm for me you signed this document after reviewing it here with your in it today. Thank you. All right, bail is set the amount so indicated. The defendant's to return to court on March 31st at 9:30 a.m. Is there anything further from either side?
No, Your Honor, thank you. Yes, Your Honor, I'd ask that defendant surrender his passport to counsel, and counsel advised me of when that has been surrendered. Suggest a week to do that. We'll make that happen.
Very good. If you please notify the court when that's complete.
I will.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Surrender his gun too. The fuck?
All said, he's committed.
So they all get that. They got a bitch.
Matthew Gallagher,
Matthew Gallagher.
That's going to be clear about it. Sorry to use circumstances. Good. Thanks. Mr. Lillibrand, is it?
Yes, good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon. Mr. Lillibrand, I have a number of media requests here for audio, video coverage, and still photography. Do you have any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Court will permit the same. The matter of the people against Matthew Gallagher, indictment 25035, on for arraignment today. I understand, Mr. Lillibrand, you've been retained to represent Matthew Gallagher. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
That's your name, sir, Matthew Gallagher?
Yes.
How old are you, Mr. Gallagher?
43.
Mr. Gallagher, you're here today because the grand jury of Oneida County has returned an indictment against you. You must be arraigned upon that indictment. Counsel, you may arraign.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Gallagher, an indictment 2025-5 in Oneida County grand jury has charged you with various crimes, the top count of which is murder in the second degree. And I'd ask counsel if you waive a further reading of the indictment.
Yes, we do, Your Honor. We enter a plea of not guilty and waive reading of the indictment.
A not guilty plea is entered on the defendant's behalf.
This time, Judge, I'm going to hand counsel a copy of the indictment with one name redacted, along with our standard pretrial notices, including a disc containing statements allegedly made by Mr. Gallagher, and ask you to acknowledge receipt of those.
Thank you, Your Honor. Give the documents and I acknowledge receipt.
All right, in that case, it's the court's intention to adjourn the matter to the morning of March 31st, 9:30 a.m. for a pretrial conference. I'll give you time between now and then to review the discovery materials and set a motion schedule at that next appearance. With respect to bail, what's the position of the people?
Your Honor, we recommend bail consistent with what you said on Mr. Anzalone and Mr. Farina.
That's bullshit.
Mr. Louis-Brand, your thoughts?
We would join in that request, Your Honor. I would add that Mr. Gallagher is a lifetime resident of the area. His family local, 2 young children and a wife. He's worked throughout the area. He has no criminal record whatsoever, Your Honor.
All right, the court's considered the arguments of counsel and the statutory factors, and noting that the defendant could face a sentence of as 25 years to life in state prison if convicted after a trial of this matter. Bail is set in the following amounts: $100,000 cash, $250,000 insurance company bail bond, or $1 million partially secured surety bond with a minimum 10% deposit. Mr. Gallagher in a position to post that bond today, or did you need to schedule that?
He's prepared. Mr. Bernardo has agreed to provide the bond on behalf of Mr. Gallagher.
Of course. That's that union money.
I'll pass a Parker warning over. You can review that with your client while I look over the bond paperwork, please.
That's that union money. Niggas ain't got that kind of money, man.
They house costs more than that.
Taxpayers' money. Catch and release.
Thank you. All right. Performing now is bondsman J. Bernardo. Mr. Bernardo, you swear the content of your bail affidavit and undertaking? Mr. Gallagher signed the same.
How do you live with yourself? How do you tell your kids this? Your kids gotta watch this. You probably don't even let them watch it. That's a racist killer. That's what it is. He beats on helpless, innocent black men in prison. He swore to uphold and defend the Constitution.
All right, so Mr. Gallagher, I have before me now a proposed bail bond in the amount of $250,000. I understand you're asking to be released upon this. Is that right? Do you understand what your number one obligation is under this bond? Exactly right. You do have a right to be present at all stages of proceedings in your case, but if you do not come back to court as required, then a warrant will be issued for your arrest. The bail you're posting by way of this bond will be forfeited and lost, and you'll then face a new felony charge, and that's known as bail jumping. Your case may then proceed in your absence. That means you could be tried in your absence and if convicted, sentenced in your absence as well. Do you understand that?
I do.
Now, the warnings I just gave you were just provided to you in written form by way of this document entitled Parker Warning. I'm holding the same up for you. Confirm for me that you did sign this document here after you reviewed it with your attorney. We're just signing and approving the bail bond. If you're released on the bond today, you're due back in this court on March 31st at 9:30 a.m. Thank you. All set, thank you.
Thank you.
They unsealed 2 indictments, right?
Not so tough now.
You have someone else?
These ain't manslaughter.
Have Walters down there.
Attorney present for Michael Fisher.
Yes. Down there, right?
Oh, shit. Ooh, sorry.
Walrath or Fisher, they're both up.
Christopher Walrath.
So to begin, Ms. Hartwell, I do have a number of requests from news media for audio and video coverage of today's proceedings, as well as still photography. Do you have any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Court will permit the same. Sir, your name is Christopher Walrath?
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Walrath, you're charged under Indictment 25035 with the felony offenses of murder in the second degree as well as manslaughter in the first degree. On these charges, you're entitled to the assistance of counsel at this and all stages of proceedings. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided to you at no cost to you. Ms. Hartwell here is with the Public Defender's Office. If you qualify for her services and you like, I can assign her to represent you. Is that your wish?
Yes.
She he at least preliminarily qualify, Ms. Hartwell?
Yes, Your Honor, he does.
All right. Then at this time, Ms. Hartwell and her office will be assigned to represent you. I'll just note, Mr. Walrath, that is subject to your it being verified that you are financially eligible for assignment of the public defender's office, and that we do not have a conflict of counsel develop as the case moves forward. I just want to make sure you understand that. With that, you're here today to be arraigned on indictment 25035. And Mr. Fitzpatrick, you may arraign.
Mr. Wallace, in indictment 25-35, you've been charged by an Oneida County grand jury with various crimes, the top count of which is murder in the second degree. Counsel asks if you waive a formal reading of the indictment.
I will. Yes, thank you.
This time, Your Honor, I'm going to hand counsel a copy of the indictment with one name redacted because that person is not yet in custody, along with our standard pretrial notices, and ask if you acknowledge receipt of that.
Do I acknowledge receipt, Your Honor?
And enter a plea.
Yes, Your Honor, we enter a plea of not guilty.
A not guilty plea is entered on the defendant's behalf. I'm going to adjourn the case to March 31st at 9:30 a.m. for a pretrial conference and to set a motion schedule. With respect to the topic of bail, what's the position of the people?
We would ask for bail to be set consistent with that of Mr. Anzalone, Mr. Farina, and Mr. Gallagher, Your Honor.
Ms. Hartwell, your thoughts?
Your Honor, with regard to that, I'm just only asking the court to consider the reasonable bail based on the information that the court has received, as well as the fact that my client is a lifelong resident here in the area of New York State, and I do not believe is a flight risk.
Officer, would you mind passing this over to Ms. Hartwell, please? Court has considered the arguments of counsel and statutory factors, taking particular note of the reality that if the defendant were convicted of the top count contained in the indictment, he could face as much as 25 years to life in state prison. Bail is set in the following amounts. That is $100,000 cash, $250,000 insurance company bail bond, or $1 million partially secured surety bond with a minimum 10% deposit. Now, Mr. Walrath, if you do make bail and you're released while these charges are pending, you do have a right to be present at all stages of proceedings in your case. If you do not come back to court when required, then a warrant will be issued for your arrest. The bail posted would be forfeited and lost. You would then face a new felony charge. That's known as bail jumping. And the case may proceed in your absence, meaning you can be tried in your absence and if convicted, sentenced in your absence as well. Do you understand?
Yes.
There's a document in writing to that effect of the warnings I just gave you. Please take a moment to review the same with your attorney, and then you may sign.
For the
record, the defendant has executed the original of the court's written Parker warning. The matter is adjourned now to March 31st at 9:30 a.m. for a pretrial conference.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I would ask the court ordered defendant to surrender his passport to counsel, and that she advise the court and special prosecutor when that's done.
All right. Understood. Thank you. Thank you. He's all set.
How do you get a public defender that you can pay that bill? Right.
Family, friends, union.
So then he has to get a public defender then.
I better pay bail than the public defender pay for the attorney. Get me out. Not guaranteed he gonna survive. conflict.
Matter of the people against Michael Fisher under indictment 25035 on for arraignment today. That's your name, sir, Michael Fisher? How old are you, Mr. Fisher? 54.
54. You still doing that dumb shit, bro?
Mr. Fisher, you're here today because the grand jury of Oneida County returned an indictment against you. You are charged with one count of the felony offense of manslaughter in the second degree. On this charge, you're entitled to the assistance of counsel at this and all stages of proceedings. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided to you at no cost to you. Ms. Hartwell is with the Public Defender's Office. If you qualify and you like, I can assign her to represent you. Is that your wish?
Yes, please.
He qualifies.
He does, Your Honor, preliminary qualifies for public defender services.
All right. So, Mr. Fisher, I'm assigning Ms. Hartwell today so you understand. Conditionally, that is that you're going to ultimately, after they give a further review of your finances, qualify for assignment of counsel, and then I'm going to have to look into whether or not a conflict exists and may need to assign you counsel. You understand?
The conflict doesn't.
You can stand in for arraignment today.
Yes.
Very good. Then we'll proceed with the arraignment. Mr. Fitzpatrick, you may arraign.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Fisher, in indictment 2025-35, you have been charged by an Oneida County grand jury with a single crime of manslaughter in the second degree. Counsel, I'd ask if you waive a formal reading of the indictment. Your Honor, at this time, I'm going to hand counsel a copy of the redacted indictment, redacted only with one name being removed, along with our standard trial notices, along with a disc containing statements allegedly made by Mr. Fisher, and I'd ask if you acknowledge receipt of those items.
You should get murder.
For real.
Murder. I think you public defender. Right. Are you paying your bill?
There's no conspiracy charges, none of that. But what happened to the conspiracy charges? What the fuck?
A
Right.
not guilty plea is entered on the defendant's behalf. This matter will be adjourned to March 31st at 9:30 a.m. for a pretrial conference and setting a motion schedule.
Not one fucking conspiracy charge.
Fitzpatrick, did you want to be heard off topic of bail?
Yes, Your Honor. I would ask, we have the people, bail be set in the amount of $25,000 cash or $100,000 bond. And I'd also ask, as with previous arraigned defendants, that Mr. Fisher surrender his passport to counsel and she advised the court and the special prosecutor of same.
Is there a passport to surrender?
No, he does not, Your Honor.
Ms. Hartwell, your thoughts on bail?
Your Honor, with regard to bail, again, I would ask the court to consider reasonable bail in this matter. I do see that Mr. Fisher is not charged with 2 counts, but only 1 count. And he is a lifelong resident of the state of New York, and he is not a flight risk. As I just indicated, he does not have a passport, and I can assure that he will not be a flight risk, and I ask the court to consider bail slightly lower than what's been recommended.
The court's considered the arguments of counsel in noting that the defendant could be sentenced to as much as 5 to 15 years in state prison if convicted after a trial. Bail is set in the following amounts. That is $50,000 cash, $100,000 insurance company bail bond, or $500,000 partially secured surety bond with a minimum 10% deposit. If I understand correctly, Mr. Bernardo is in a position to post a bond today. All right, when you have your paperwork ready, I'll review the same. Sir, if you don't mind passing that over for me, thank you. Here. Just gotta get the dollar amount in here, right? Oh, I know.
Got out of the car, covered it up with the fire department, research people.
Mr. Bernardo, you swear the truth of the content of your bail affidavit and undertaking, is that correct? signature, please. Thank you. All right, Mr. Fisher, I have before me a proposed bail bond in the amount of $100,000, and I understand you're asking to be released upon this. Is that correct?
Yes,
Do you understand what your obligation is under this bond?
yes.
What's that?
Show up or lose everything.
Exactly right. Yeah, you have to come to court or this bond will be forfeited.
Won't be a problem.
Very good. So I'm going to advise you of your warnings relative to that. You do have a right to be present at all stages of proceedings in your case. If you do not come back to court when required, then a warrant will be issued for your arrest. The bail being posted by way of this bond here today, that would be forfeited and lost. You then face a new felony charge known as bail jumping, and the case could proceed in your absence, meaning you could be tried in your absence and, if convicted, sentenced in your absence as well. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
I've received a document entitled Parker Warning that outlines those warnings I just gave you in written form. Confirm for me you signed this document here after reviewing it with counsel today?
Yes.
Word is signing and approving the bail bond. You'll be released on the bond here today. Mr. Fisher, you are due back in this court on March 31st at 9:30 a.m. Yes, sir. Thank you. Also,
Thank you.
Judge, I'll check the progress of the others. Nicholas Gentile.
Defense counsel, I'm going to mispronounce your name unless you help me. Nociolo. Counsel, do you have any objection to the media coverage of today's proceedings? All right, court will permit the same. This is the matter of the people against Nicholas Gentile, indictment 25035, on for arraignment today. And counsel, it's Julie Nociolo, correct? You've been retained to represent Nicholas Gentile? That's your name, sir, Nicholas Gentile?
Yes, sir.
How old are you, Mr. Gentile?
36 years old.
Mr. Gentile, you're here today because the grand jury of Oneida County returned an indictment against you. You have to be arraigned upon that. Counsel, you may arraign.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Gentile, in indictment 2025-35, an Oneida County grand jury has charged you in the 8th count of said indictment with tampering with physical evidence, violation of section 215.40, subdivision 2 of the penal law. And Ms. Nociolo, I ask you to waive a further reading of the indictment. Your Honor, at this time I'm going to hand counsel a copy of the indictment redacted with one name missing, along with our pretrial notices and demands, etc. It has to be acknowledged receipt items.
Acknowledge receipt, Your Honor.
And enter a plea.
Enter a plea of not guilty on my client's behalf.
A not guilty plea is entered on the defendant's behalf. Court will adjourn the matter to March 31st at 9:30 a.m. for a pretrial conference in the setting of a motion schedule. What are the people's thoughts with respect to the defense release status?
I believe this is a case where you can't set bail, so I leave any conditions to the court's discretion.
All right. Do you want to be heard on that topic, Ms. Nociolo?
Briefly, Your Honor, with respect to any conditions, I agree obviously with the people. This is a non-qualifying offense. Mr. Gentile has been a lifelong member of this community, has a wife and 2 kids, has retained me as counsel, and we ask therefore that he be released on his own recognizance.
All right, the court's considered the arguments of counsel and the bail statute being what it is at present. This does constitute a non-qualifying offense, such that bail may not be set on this particular charge. Mr. Gentile, that means I'm going to be releasing you on your own recognizance, which effectively means on your promise that you will return to court when required. Do you promise me you'll do so?
Yes, Your Honor.
Understand that if you were to break that promise and not come back to court as directed, then you're subject to having release on your own recognizance revoked, and that means you could then be committed to the jail with or without bail, so I'll be assured you do come to court when required. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to pass over a document entitled Parker Warning that outlines your obligations in that regard.
So where's the nurse? Where's the nurse?
For the record, the defendant has executed the written Parker warning here in court. Mr. Gentile, keep in touch with your attorney. You'll be back in this court on March 31st at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you.
They were all the same fucking thing. I'm Sicilian and but unless it's really like skin for you. No, I don't do that way. I don't. Yeah. Oh, you're in order. Oh. You know, I'm so tired of doing this. You know what?
Coming up, thank you.
David Kingsley.
Hi, Mr. Collins. This is Annabelle Newport from the Family Justice Law Center. I'm just returning your phone call. You can give me a call back at 732.
They didn't want all this stuff up. Because they didn't want this was all planned out.
Oh, this is the matter of the people against David Kingsley, indictment 25035. At the outset, Ms. Hartwell, do you have any objection to media coverage?
No, Your Honor.
Court will permit the same. And, sir, that's your name, correct? David Kingsley?
Yes.
So, Mr. Kingsley, you're here today because the grand jury of Oneida County did return an indictment against you. You are charged with 1 count of the felony offense of murder in the 2nd degree and 1 count of the felony offense of manslaughter in the 1st degree. On these charges, you're entitled to the assistance of counsel at this and all stages of proceedings, and if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided to you at no cost to you. Ms. Hartwell, does he qualify?
Yes, Your Honor.
Preliminarily?
Preliminary qualified for public defender services.
And with that in mind, Mr. Finelli, are you in a position to take an assignment? Yes. Why don't I have counsel approach, please?
She's been arrested for her job. Every time no, she's right. She sure is. She's right. We want to know something. One more thing up there, right? She's been arrested for her job. We didn't know who she was. Until we started opening up the how can you sleep next day? Because he beat her up while she got kicked. She was like, oh, don't worry, you can't get out. We ain't got no money. Stuff like that. Don't sit there and talk to me, lady. You racist, what you gonna beat me up too? Yeah, but you didn't say nothing to the right. You said something wrong. When we told you to shoot her, it was her. And I asked you, she got kids. She got kids. We got kids. You killing our kids. You killing our kids. You jail and they get murdered. That ass. You stomping the man up and do this, kids.
That's right.
And she was over here, came over here messing with us. We wasn't saying shit. That's why officers in Syracuse down there give us the box, so stop fucking it. Nobody cares. And I want to know why bills too. And we still got to pay a high bill. A bail. We got the same shit you guys got. Y'all never wanted bail before, but now you guys are paying bail before now. They don't talk to none of us inside. They go black money. Nobody over here is bothering you. No one's right now. Your mama over here talking to us non-stop. You had a house in the same time. He qualified for a bill. And why did Mr. Fitzpatrick give out $750,000 bail for the drug raid in Syracuse and Richmond Ave, but gives murderers $250,000 bail? When you give a drug raid $750,000 bail for 11 people? Bullshit.
It's a mockery of
Gave my son's murderer $50,000 bail. Manslaughter is
So, Mr. Kingsley, you are entitled to the assistance of counsel throughout these proceedings, and if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be assigned to you. Do you intend to retain counsel, or would you like counsel assigned? All right, then I understand, Ms. Hartwell, maybe at least preliminarily qualifies. All right, in that case, Mr. Kingsley, I do have attorney Matthew Finelli here. I'm going to assign him at this time as your attorney for purposes of today's arraignment. That's a conditional assignment insofar as I understand the Public Defender's Office is going to complete their review of your financials to ensure that you are, in fact, eligible for assigned counsel. You understand? With that, then I'll ask Mr. Finelli to step up, and I'll thank Ms. Hartwell.
These individuals will show you correct credentials. If you can provide me credentials, I'll let you record. How about that? Thank you, sir.
Mr. Finelli, you're welcome to turn the microphone off and take a moment to confer with your client. Thank you very much. All right, so Mr. Kingsley, the reason for your appearance here today is because the grand jury of United County returned an indictment against you, so you have to be arraigned upon that. Mr. Fitzpatrick, you may arraign.
Thank you, Your Honor. First, I apologize to the court, but I'd like to amend the indictment to reflect the correct spelling of Mr. Kingsley's name. In the head note of the indictment and in count 1 and count 2, Mr. Kingsley's name should be spelled Kingsley.
I see that a couple of letters were transposed. No objection, Mr. Finelli. No objection, Your Honor. Court will permit the amendment.
Mr. Kingsley, in indictment 2025-35, you've been charged by an Oneida County grand jury with various crimes, the top count of which is murder in the second degree. And I'd ask Mr. Finelli if you waive a formal of the indictment?
I do waive.
This time, Your Honor, I'm going to hand Mr. Finelli a copy of the redacted indictment with one name missing, along with our standard pretrial notices, as well as a disc containing statements allegedly made by Mr. Kingsley and the SQB College receipt of those items.
I acknowledge receipt. And under a plea.
My client wishes to enter a plea of not guilty.
Not guilty plea is entered on the defendant's behalf. This event will be adjourned to March 31st at 9:30 a.m. for a pretrial conference and setting up a motion schedule. And I wish to be heard on the question of bail. Mr. Fitzpatrick.
I ask that bail be set consistent with Mr. Anzalone, Mr. Farina, Mr. Walworth, Mr. Gallagher, and that Mr. Kingsley surrender his passport, if he has one, to Mr. Finelli at his earliest convenience, and notify the court and special prosecutor when that is done.
Mr. Finelli, does your client have a passport?
Your Honor, I believe he does have a passport, correct? Do not. Oh, do not have a passport. Does not have a passport.
All right, and your thoughts on bail, Mr. Finelli?
Your Honor, I just ask that you take into consideration, it's my understanding that my client is a family man. He is a lifelong resident of Jefferson County.
So was Robert Brooks a band, motherfucker?
I would ask that the court take those considerations when setting bail.
Courts considered the statutory factors as well as the positions of counsel here this morning, and I do take particular note of the fact that if convicted after a trial of the top count here, the defendant does face as much as 25 years to life in state prison. Accordingly, bail is set in the following amounts. That is $100,000 cash, $250,000 insurance company bail bond, or $1 million partially secured surety bond with a minimum 10% deposit. We'll pass over a written Parker warning. Mr. Kingsley, some things to understand, sir. You do have a right to be present at all stages of proceedings in your case, but if you did not come back to court when required after posting bail, then a warrant would be issued for your arrest. Any bail posted would be forfeited and lost. You then face a new felony charge known as bail jumping, and your case proceeding in your absence, meaning you could be tried in your absence and if convicted, sentenced in your absence as well. Do you understand? Counsel, please take a moment to review that with your client and have him execute the same.
Your Honor, just for the court's notice here, there appears to be a typo here in this Parker warning. It indicates that Sir is the third, David James Kingsley the third. He is not the third.
Can amend that then, thank you. For the record, the defendant has executed the written Parker warning here in court. The matter is now adjourned to March 31st at 9:30 a.m. I will have you back then, Mr. Kingsley. He's all set, thank you.
Being peaceful. We want this peaceful by any means necessary. Which one?
They gonna drag this shit out for years, man.
So, I don't even know if you want that. You know what I'm saying? Because I really do not believe that they're not.
Thank you for waiting, Mr. Passalacqua.
Absolutely, Your Honor.
Continue to have no objection to the media.
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
I'm not feeling none of that. It was our first show with these cameras.
Oh, he looks racist, like he's like a fucking biker. Skinhead.
No, that's not about cash. Yeah, right.
This is the matter of the people against David Walters, indictment 25035, on for arraignment today. Mr. Passalacqua, do I understand correctly you've been retained to represent David Walters?
Yes, Your Honor, on behalf of Passalacqua & Associates, we have been retained to represent Mr. Walters.
Thank you. That's your name, sir, David Walters?
That's correct, sir.
How old are you, Mr. Walters?
36.
Mr. Walters, you're here today because the grand jury of Oneida County returned an indictment against you. You have to be arraigned upon. Mr. Fitzpatrick, you may arraign.
Thank you, Robert. Mr. Walters, in indictment 2025-35, an Oneida County grand jury has charged you in the 6th count of said indictment with the crime of manslaughter in the 2nd degree. Mr. Passalacqua, I'd ask if you waive a formal reading of same.
I will.
I'm going to hand defense counsel a copy of that redacted indictment along with our standard pretrial notices as well as a disc containing statements allegedly made by Mr. Walters to law enforcement.
I would not proceed on. Any formal proceedings entered, plead not guilty to all charges at this time.
Very good. A not guilty plea is then entered on the defendant's behalf. The matter will be adjourned for a pretrial conference to March 31st at 9:30 a.m., at which time, if necessary, I will also set a motion schedule. And Mr. Fitzpatrick, your thoughts on bail?
I would ask that bail be set consistent with that set on Mr. Fisher, and that if Mr. Walters has a passport, he surrender it to his attorney and his attorney notify the court and the special prosecutor of same.
Mr. Passalacqua, does your client have a passport?
He does not, Your Honor.
All right, and your thoughts then on bail?
Yes, Your Honor, I would ask the court to consider setting bail lower than has been previously set. Mr. Walters has been a lifelong resident of the area, does not have a passport, does not recall the last time if he ever left the country at all. He's retained my office. He's been in constant contact with us. We've maintained constant contact with Mr. Fitzpatrick's office throughout these proceedings and leading up to today's arraignment. He poses zero flight risk, and I would ask the court to consider those factors when setting bail.
Thank you. The court's considered the statutory factors as well as the position of counsel here this afternoon, noting that if convicted of the sole count the defendant faces indictment, he could face 5 to 15 years in a state prison facility. Bail is set in the following amounts. That is $50,000 cash, $100,000 insurance company bail bond, or $500,000 partially secured surety bond with a minimum 10% deposit. Mr. Walters, if you post bail while these charges are pending, you do have right to be present at all stages of proceedings in your case. But if you did not come back to court, then a warrant would be issued for your arrest. Any bail posted would be forfeited and lost, and you would then face a new felony charge known as bail jumping. And your case could proceed in your absence, meaning you could be tried in your absence, and if convicted, sentenced in your absence as well. Do you understand?
Yes.
There's a written document to that effect. I'll let you take a moment to review that with your attorney.
Thank you, Your Honor.
For the record, the defendant has executed the original Parker warning here in court. The court is now in receipt of the same. The matter is adjourned to March 31st at 9:30 a.m. for a pretrial conference, and I will have you back then, Mr. Walters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Like from May shop?
Is it Thomas Capezza? Mr. Capezza, I have a number of requests from the news media to cover today's proceedings. Any objection? The court will permit the same. people against Michael Mashaw, indictment 25035, on for arraignment today. And it is Thomas Capezza, correct, counsel?
Thomas Capezza, Your Honor.
All right.
On behalf of Michael Masher.
Oh, please. You've been retained to represent Michael Mashaw?
Yes, Your Honor.
And sir, that's your name, Michael Mashaw?
Yes, sir.
How old are you, Mr. Mashaw?
47, sir.
Mr. Mashaw, you're here today because the grand jury of Oneida County... Out, please. You're here today, Mr. Mashaw, because the grand jury of Oneida County returned an indictment against you. You have to be arraigned upon that. And Mr. Fitzpatrick, you may arraign.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Masher, indictment 2025-35, you've been charged by the Oneida County grand jury in count 4 with the crime of manslaughter in the second degree. Mr. Capezza, I ask if you waive a formal reading of said indictment.
Waive a public reading and to please of not guilty.
At this time, Your Honor, I'm going to hand Mr. Capezza a redacted copy of that indictment missing one name, along with our standard pretrial notices, along with a disc containing statements allegedly made by Mr. Mashaw, and ask if you acknowledge receipt of those.
Acknowledge receipt.
All right. Did I hear correctly? Did you enter a plea?
Excuse me, Your Honor?
You entered a plea. Did I hear you right?
Yes.
All right. A plea of not guilty entered on the defendant's behalf. This matter will be adjourned to March 31st at 9:30 a.m. for a pretrial conference and a setting of a motion schedule. Mr. Fitzpatrick, your thoughts on bail, sir?
Your Honor, I would ask that bail be set consistent with that set on Mr. Fisher and Mr. Walters, and that Mr. Mashaw, if he has a passport, surrender same to Mr. Capezza, and that Mr. Capezza notify the court, the special prosecutor, when that is done.
Your Honor, we will turn over the passport.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That'll be a condition of any bail set here today. Your thoughts on bail, Mr. Capezza?
Your Honor, we consent to the bail and Mr. Bernardo will provide.
All right. The court's considered the arguments of counsel here this morning, as well as the statutory factors, and bail is then set in the following amounts: $50,000 cash, $100,000 insurance company bail bond, or $500,000 partially secured surety bond with a minimum 10% deposit. You have the bond paperwork? I'll take a look at that, Mr. Bernardo. We're looking at that now. Thank you. All right, before the court now is Bondsman J. Bernardo. Mr. Bernardo, you swear to the truth of the content of your bail undertaking and affidavit. Is that correct? Thank you. Could you get his signature, please? Thank you. Mr. Mashaw, I have before me a proposed bail bond in the amount of $100,000. I understand you're asking to be released upon this. Is that correct? You understand what your number one obligation is under this bond? What's that? And on any other date you're required to be in court. You have a right to be present at all stages of proceedings in this case, but if you did not come back to court when required, then a warrant would be issued for your arrest. Any bail you posted, even by way of this bond, that would be forfeited and lost. And you would then face a new felony charge known as bail jumping, and the case could proceed in your absence, meaning you could be tried in your absence, and if convicted, sentenced in your absence as well. Do you understand that? I've received a written document to that effect entitled Parker Warning. Confirm for me you signed that document here in court after you reviewed it with your attorney.
Yes, sir.
All right, you'll be released on that bond today. You're due back in this court on March 31st at 9:30 a.m. for a pretrial conference.
Thank you, Your Honor.
That is all. Thank you.
going out the back door. These steps are not done. Sound good, you got to do. But you know, it's not right, Max. They all go ahead. Please help them. Please help them. Very much so. Stay up. We're doing about black and brown. Stay up. That's good.